Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the 11th episode of Disability Discrimination Ban Starting Now. I am your host, Lindsay, and today we have another one of my college friends, and I am very excited for you guys to hear from him. Welcome to the show, Dan.
Thanks, Lindsay. Thanks for having me.
So I gave a very brief introduction to you. Do you mind sharing a little more about you so our listeners or my listeners can get to know you?
Yeah, of course. So, my name is Dan Graff. I live in Florida. I attended Beacon College with Lindsay, as she said. Um, I work for a dental insurance company. I process claims I get from dentist offices, and I process all that into our system to make sure everything is accurate and correct.
Well, that's cool. So what years did you attend Beacon?
So I started Beacon January of 2016 and graduated December 2019.
Mm. Yeah, I when I was trying to think about which years, I was like, I gotta ask them that because I don't remember. Um, so a lot of the guests that I have had on have said they have some of their favorite memories at Beacon. What is your favorite memory there?
Yeah, so I have a lot of favorite memories. So I like how Beacon did all these off-campus trips for us when we weren't at or during the weekend, I should say. But during the week when we were in like classes and stuff, my favorite memory is probably hanging out in the library or student center with all of our other friends and just hanging out, goofing off and stuff like that.
So every aspect at Beacon,
Yeah,
basically.
yeah.
So as um as everyone knows, Beacon is a college for people with learning disabilities. What um what is it like going to college with a disability?
So it can be kind of tough. So before I attended Beacon, I attended a community college in my city for a semester. Um, and it was hard for me because I don't know if they didn't really do a lot to support my disability, and it was just hard. But when I transferred over to Beacon in January of that year, it was still a little bit hard, but it was easier too because like they understand our needs and how we learn differently. But like with all the help they get from our learning specialists, they find ways to help us succeed and to succeed in college.
Yeah, and you did mention some of the hardest things about your community college. Was there with them not understanding your learning disability and how to help you with that? But was there any hardest moments besides that of attending college? Or
Yeah, so I think maybe like one of the hardest things was like finding the right ways to study. Just like because I've struggled with that like ever since middle school, and just having trouble like finding ways to study, getting motivated to study is hard for me. But I think that was one of the hardest things, but our learning specialist again made it easier for us, helping us find ways to study.
Yeah, so I'm gonna add a question. If there is someone listening that does have a disability, like middle school, high school, and can't study for long periods of time, what would you suggest they do to kind of get the studying done, but also at the same time don't overwhelm yourself?
So what I would say is just take it take it slow. Like don't rush yourself and getting you to try to get all that information in your head because that doesn't work. But just take it slow. Maybe do 1 hour 1 hour session like every day or if maybe more, but I um just find ways to like find like tricks to helping you know that information. But basically the main thing is just take it slow and eventually you will get that information you need.
So I have asked these next few questions in every interview episode I have done. But if we're talking, or if a prospective student or parent that's looking into Beacon is listening, from a student's perspective, what would you say to that parent or that student to kind of encourage them to look more into Beacon as a possibility?
Yeah, well, I would say so. Beacon was a great school. But what I would say is, I would tell them that Beacon does an amazing job understanding your disabilities, and it is a small school, but in Florida, but it's really helpful for people with disabilities. Like compared to like the larger schools like UCF and
Florida
Florida
State.
Florida State, yeah. It's Beacon is smaller, but because it's smaller, that means there's a lot more hands-on opportunities, more one-on-one help. It's just it will help that student get to what they need to succeed in school.
Yeah, and one thing too is that Beacon also has smaller class sizes.
Hmm.
So would you say that for you having that small class helped you more because we were able to in a way connect with the professor or
Yeah,
interact?
yeah, I think the small classrooms sized help because like each class probably had about 10, 12 people in a class compared to like colleges where there's like 50 or maybe 100. But having a small size class that gives a lot of one-on-one time and hands-on activities and basically the professors with these small sizes they can go at a slow pace but they can still get all the material we need with these small sizes because they know how to work with us and
And
with
they know us.
yeah
They
and they
know.
know us because the professors they'll get to know you on a personal level very quickly.
Yeah, and that's one of the hardest things about graduating was I became friends with my professors. It's like, no, I don't want to leave yet. But I know it had to be done.
Yeah.
And what do you think the world can learn from people with any type of disability?
So I think what the world can learn is that everyone is different. Um, Even with people like us who learn differently, everyone is different. But with us, like you just have to know that it takes us longer to process or learn things differently from others, and the world needs to accept that because like our brains can't control what we learn or process or stuff like that. So that's what I think about that.
Yeah, and I of course ask this question a whole lot because I feel that this question is most important out of all of them that I sent you. So when I was researching during doing this podcast, and I had noticed that no one's specifically talking about discrimination against people with disabilities, and the two podcasts I saw only had 2 episodes and hadn't updated in a few years.
Mhm.
Why do you think discrimination against people with disabilities is not being discussed?
So I don't think it's like being discussed at all because like it's just a lot of information. Like there are so many disabilities, autism, ADHD, ADD. The list goes on. Even and that's just mental disabilities. Like and then there's also physical disabilities. Like I think it just like
Cerebral palsy,
yeah, cerebral palsy.
being in a wheelchair.
Yeah, it's just that people get discriminated all the time, and that just they don't just I don't think the world knows like how to deal with it. Like, and I think that's why like discrimination isn't talked at all, or talked at very much at all,
Yeah,
because
and
it's just a
I
lot.
think the one thing that really angers me, like you said, is is because no one knows, like, in a way what they are, but it's
Mhm,
almost like they're punishing like you or me for
mhm,
having that disability. Well,
right.
I say we don't have control over what happens to us before we're adults. Like
Mhm,
if we were born with a disability or born with a learning disability, then I'm sorry, but if you don't want to see people like me, then just don't talk to us.
mhm,
Because I tend to have the level of protection for myself, being very picky, like who I'm friends with, who I open up to, because who knows if that person will discriminate against me in the future, and you too.
right.
Um, so if you were to talk to someone who doesn't understand learning disabilities or just wants to discriminate against us, what would you say to them?
So I would say to them, so having a learning disability can be tough because you don't learn the same as everyone else. Like as like even so like when I was in middle school, when I first knew I had this disability, like I knew it was hard for me because like I didn't get to really experience like larger classes because I was taken out of the classes in middle school and placed into a um smaller class with my special education teacher. But just like having a learning disability, it can be tough because you just don't experience the same thing as your other peers.
Yeah.
So
And and what is it in a way like to have a disability in a workplace? Because you did speak about your job. And of course, everyone knows with the ADA, a business is required to create accommodations for
mhm.
people like you and I to be able to excel in our jobs.
Yeah, I mean, having a disability in the workplace is hard too because I know like if you're in meetings, like you have to make sure you're processing all the stuff that's being talked about. but so with my job, since I work remotely, it's a little bit easier for me because I'm on Teams and I don't really have a lot of meetings I attend because I'm mostly like, on the computer typing. But when I was working as when I had other jobs a couple years ago, because I had a graphic design part-time jobs, I was had to attend meetings there too, and it was in an office. It was in a large conference room, and just like having to process all the information was tough. But I know the my supervisors at those jobs, they knew about my disability because I was because I told them about it, and they knew about it because I was recruited with them by an employment specialist that serviced people with disabilities. But the but it can but for other people it can be hard. Even with like people who have autism or like have those disabilities where they just have a hard time concentrating
Processing or
or
focusing.
yeah or focusing, it can be hard for them. But that's why you shouldn't discriminate you because they can't help with their how they're processing that information.
So would you say you work better on a computer? You could say remotely compared to it in the workplace?
So in my experience, working remotely is much easier than working in the office. Because at this job right now that I've been working remotely at, I have been at this company for actually it has been a year now, um, and compared to all my other jobs that only lasted a couple months, it was just hard for me. But well, working remotely, it gives me more opportunity for training and just meeting with my supervisors one on one.
Yeah, so the last question that I have for you is what would you say to your younger self, like your 13-year-old, your 10-year-old, whatever age you want to, now that you are graduated with a degree and in the working world?
Yeah, so I would say to myself um that I shouldn't don't be afraid to try new things. Take risk, opportunities to help you succeed in life. And just even though when I was 13, I didn't really know what my disability was. I would probably, now that I know mostly about what my disability is, I would explain to my younger self what it is and how to cope with it and process it. And just, yeah, but that's what I would do.
Yeah, and you had said at 13 you didn't fully understand what your disability was. And
Hmm.
I can say with myself too, I didn't really understand it. I mean, I've gotten into the fact that I have cerebral palsy, which is the most common disability in children. But there
Hmm.
are certain aspects of my life where I didn't understand what was going on until I was in high school and
Hmm.
like really paying attention to what my doctors were saying.
Right.
Well, Dan, thank you for coming on.
Hmm.
I, everyone, I hope you have enjoyed what you heard Dan say. And please do not hesitate to reach out if you have any questions. And just know that to everyone that has limitations, because I hate the word disability, honestly, um, we're all in this together. Well, I will see you guys the next episode. Bye, guys.